Yeah. So Don An is now welcome to ask his question. Don.
Anyway, we are live, Alexei. So.
All right. So welcome for people in YouTube. This is the live streaming from the panel discussion at the LeSS Day Europe 2020 conference, in case you're wondering what was that. Okay, Don is not there. Then I'm just, but you guys also see the chat, right? So any pro tips for handling integration testing in organization where you develop product with many legacy systems that some are even in COBOL? So we just dive into hardcore stuff, right? With our introductions, and then we do an intro round. So any pro tips for handling integration testing organization where you develop products with many legacy systems? That's a simple one to answer, right?
I actually believe
if there's one thing that you can go into is isolating your old legacy with new, more fancier stuff, and then a technique that is very popular these days, and I would recommend is the contract-based testing. So you have consumer-based testing and then provider-based testing, so that you keep your APIs clean and correct, and that's that way you can isolate certain parts more and more in a conscious, safe way, to use an ugly word.
Yeah, that I want to add, because I'm actually mostly working with such environments. So you have to build the API to the old system and actually stop adding a lot of the stuff in this system rather than create some layer that hide the old system behind it. So I believe this is one of the strategies that might be, or like you also can cut by piece cut the old system to something new. It might be another strategy.
I will give my 2 cents and also say something about what was already said. Cutting the system into pieces is exactly not integration testing. So if we isolate, we don't do integration testing. I think I don't have any good tips because it sucks. The situation of integrating with multiple systems like in banks and stuff is very, very difficult to handle. My only advice is just do it in real time. Don't postpone it even 5 minutes after the code was written. Just have cross-component teams with people who are writing Java and JavaScript and COBOL at the same team, and let them take care of that. That's my tip.
All right. Still, it's good to do a round of introductions, right? So people know who you are. And if I may, I would like to ask you guys to share, while introducing yourself, share maybe some of the recent experiment you've seen teams in LeSS trying, or something you're currently experimenting with or contemplating of, like something new that maybe still not in the guides or described elsewhere, like something new for us, right? And anyone wants to start? Please do that.
Maybe you can start from yourself.
It's a hard question, right?
Yeah.
Still not prepared. Yeah, I mean, so I'm Alexei Krivitsky. I'm trying some of the LeSS principles with my clients. I don't call it LeSS. I don't call it Scrum. I just do stuff, and then people, I think, get some deeper understanding, like how things work and why things work. One thing I'm trying to incorporate with my coaching is some kind of, I don't know, maybe that's a wrong word, but road mapping techniques, something which is not a part of LeSS or Scrum, but rather long-term horizon, not really planning, but at least helping people see like the horizon of the product development for a year or more, if possible, because I believe development teams working too hard, like, and too deep, like sprint after sprint after sprint, they just actually forget like what this is all about. So I like doing some kind of let's all try to see the bigger future workshops when I'm about to start an adoption or transformation. And I'm passing the ball to Wolfgang because he's a new panelist and he hasn't spoken yet. So let's just let him speak for a while.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Wolfgang Steffens, and yeah, I'm living in Finland. So just that about me. So yeah, interesting question. What I would say is that I saw in my last coaching activity, maybe an experiment like avoid. So avoid too much upfront planning. So I have seen an organization planning the transformation for about a year with all the kind of like management or all team leads, and then basically they started with a reorganization. So okay, we form new teams. It had nothing to do with less, but still. And then I said, okay, so when do we start? And then they didn't know. So the starting date of this new organization was completely open, and even though they prepared for 1 year, and then anyway, all the things they figured out were not the things which were the problem. And I tried to shift then in this organization that to focus on the problems the organization is having right now instead of the upfront invented potential problems. Alexei,
You're muted.
Thanks. Pick someone else, please, to continue after you.
Okay, Dennis.
Thank you, Wolfgang. So yeah, I'm Dennis. I'm a Scrum and LeSS practitioner from Russia, living and working in Germany. And I think if we talk about experiments, one of the things I'm paying a lot of attention to recently when working with companies is how to include HR department into things we are changing in the companies, how to make them more like transform the way they approach, like looking for candidates, supporting candidates while they work in the company, and offboarding people to make it more suitable to the culture and to the approaches we try to preach in the teams, in the product group, or within even one Scrum team. Because I've seen, and I also shared that yesterday in my talk, I've seen companies which struggled from like trying to create and preach some culture within the IT department or within the organization at all, but not having proper support from the HR, or is it mostly called nowadays people department. So yeah, this is, I think, main field where I try to experiment nowadays. And probably the next person could be Jürgen.
Thank you. So my name is Jürgen, one of the few LeSS trainers at this moment in time. Hopefully we get more later on. Living in Belgium, working mostly across Europe in that sense, as a Scrum Master. People hire me as a coach, but I tend to just immediately introduce myself as a Scrum Master. It would be a bit silly to introduce layers of coaches if you want the others to have more of a cross-functional team, but anyhow. I think I'm living my biggest experiment up until now. So having a full remote LeSS up and running, which was only turned around into a LeSS structure since January this year. So they were in sprint 3 or 4 at that sense when everything came to a lockdown. I'm always interested in the remote working things as well. So I think this is a great opportunity, and it seems to work out not that bad. It's not as good as in person, but at least the people in the teams, and even growing product definition now, we're expanding team capacity in that sense. They still tend to go with not a mandatory office thing, except of refinement sessions. So refinement sessions, we all tend to think like this is really like in face-to-face, really collaborative environments. But all the rest, they tend to continue working full remote, which I think
This
is
exactly
an experiment.
This exactly falls into the question we have currently on YouTube. Like, will you do a sprint planning with Zoom and Miro, or which kind of tools you're using?
We mainly use Zoom, Miro, or Jitsi, or Blue Jeans, depending on which customer we're working with. And Miro or Muro, also depending on which customer. To be honest, the discussion about do we use Miro or Muro, you know what? They're so close to each other. Just flip a coin, pick the one you had, and use that one. It's they're so similar.
All right.
What I do recommend is use collaborative tools where you can have drawing and system diagrams and all the rest of the thing. Not using tools where you just have the 3-column thing or a task board. No.
Thanks. We're still in the round of interaction, so Jurgen, pick someone next.
Elad, my friend, come on.
Yay. So I'm Elad from Israel. I live in Israel. I work mostly in Israel, a little bit in Europe and the US, but mostly in Israel. I don't like to travel a lot. Something I've been trying lately, not so successfully, by the way, is having data scientists inside a classic development team, like, you know, the trend of AI and all of those big data stuff. I'm trying to really have them iteratively work with the team in 2-week sprints. It's currently still in the really early experimentation phase. And nothing to report so far. It's pretty hard because they are used to be working and creating models and stuff like that, and only then passing that to the developers. And we are trying to see what options do we have for closer and faster collaboration and feedback loops. And I'm passing the ball. I don't know who wants the ball. Bob, Evgeny.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my name is Evgeny. I'm LeSS practitioner from Kyiv, Ukraine. I have an interesting experiment running right now. Actually, it's very something like Jürgen told, because we started the transformation in PandaDoc in January, and it was like a couple of sprints before lockdown. So everything is running online, and I actually see the big benefit on the small teams, because the teams are 5-6 person each. And the small teams running well on this distributed environment with online stuff. And actually, they made a lot of experiments regarding the PBR made online, and they shared some of the knowledge this morning. So you will be able to see it in recording. So they also made it online. Like the experiment we are facing right now, is it possible to raise the amount of teams without introducing the areas of the product? So keeping everyone in one area. I truly believe right now, and this is my hypothesis, let's say like this, that this is the question of facilitation and the ability of the team to self-manage. That might be the successful experiment, might be not. We have 10 teams right now. So Jürgen, I'm giving a chance to you.
Yeah, tomorrow there's somebody coming to talk about his case study where they are at this moment with 13 teams on one backlog.
Wow. So we are getting to it, and that's actually a very interesting story, right? So we're trying to keep one backlog, one focus, without introducing actual areas and starting kind of local optimization. So this is the experiment, and I'm giving a turn to Robert.
Thanks, Evgeny. Yeah, so I'm Robert, and if you not joined recently, but just an hour ago, then you might have also seen my talk. I'm from Berlin, and yeah, experimenting. On the one side, I got some super cool ideas from Jürgen regarding online sprint review, and we had some super cool, yeah, I think sprint review just last week, with really, just sending the people on the development environment and using it and putting all the feedback on Miro, instead of having people just, showing the software to each other in a kind of presentation mode. And that was really nice. You have to prepare a lot, but you get much more feedback, and yeah, it's much more intense. So that's one thing. And the other thing I mentioned also in my talk is I have the luxury at the moment to work with one really cross-functional team where we have not only iOS and Android development, so two different apps in the same team, but also marketing in the team, and that's exciting. And we're trying to extend about like the product definition above one product. I'm working with digital innovation department, and they try to do multiple products, and we're discussing like why not extend the product definition, not to optimize locally only on one product, but do basically those products that get more return and understand what's working best outside at the customers. And that's something that we are, I'm engaged with.
Sounds good. I guess everybody had the chance to say something, right? So, because Robert, you've just mentioned that you have a team that integrates marketing and sales and everything. There's a question on YouTube streaming. How would you apply LeSS in marketing and sales?
Well, as I said, I ideally I would, if you have the chance, integrate those skills into your team. And that's the way how we do it, and not see the marketing. I think that's the wrong question to ask, like how to introduce LeSS in the marketing organization, because the marketing organization doesn't create a product and that the customer consume. They need the product development organization to do that. So you better integrate it, and you understand how you have those skills in your product group in order to to faster deliver exactly what the client needs.
Anyone else wants to jump on that? Any different opinions? Jürgen?
So marketing, I fully agree. Yeah? So when we integrated marketing for Sparefood, for example, in 2016, I guess, what happened is that they stepped away from more of the traditional marketing techniques, but went more into growth hacking techniques. So more effective techniques on how to grow market and brand awareness and all that stuff. Sales is another scenario. I never have integrated sales, and to be honest, up until now, I never came into a situation where it would make sense to actually integrate sales into the product development space of working.
All right, I guess the answer is clear.
I believe, guys, on the YouTube, the question was in another. So it was not about the integration; it about less implementation in marketing or sales.
The answer was that you should not do that because they just functions, not really. Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is a great example of super local optimization.
Yeah, I mean, you can do Agile and Scrum and Kanban and Lean and Six Sigma and CMMI level 17 in marketing, but it's not gonna help you if you don't know how to do products, right? So local optimization trap. So we go to the next question is different. How do you deal with the lag between software development and the UX design details? In a lot of organizations, UX are designing future features, right? And the devs are working on the current feature set, which doesn't feel right, but that's how things are. So what is your take? How would you guys approach that challenge?
If the person is online to get clarification, what do you mean that the UX? You mean that the UX is working in advance, and only after that the team starts to work on that?
So, Christoph, if you'd like to say a few words, we can give you a microphone. You can talk if you are able to. Somehow it doesn't work, this talking thing.
Yes, would love to.
He said he would love to,
Yeah.
and then he should try.
Make him a presenter.
He is.
Promote to panelist.
Yes.
I think the question is based on a big misconception that discovery and delivery should be separated. I think if you build a product, definitely in the less way, then discovery and delivery as it is within the same team, within the same scenarios, to make sure that you get into validated learning. Like UX techniques, design thinking techniques are great to lower the risk that you take the wrong assumptions, but the validated learning comes from really putting it into production. So having this both together in the same team structures, where you have at a certain moment in time more on discovery and a certain moment in time more on delivery, but have the collaboration to have both in the same structures is amazing to have. So this is taking a leap of assumption, but I think this is where lots of things go wrong, that we think discovery should be done first and then delivery. And it's not.
Fully support that if that was the intention of the question. Yes, of course.
Let's assume it was. I mean, I think
Yeah.
we can assume.
My classic explanation is that up until, I don't know, 15 years ago, we assumed that testing should not be a part of the team. And then we assumed that server should not be a part of the client team. And then we said that DevOps is not a part of the team. And so over time, what happens is that we learn how to collaborate. So it's now pretty easy for backend and front-end developers to collaborate because we know how, we have the technology, the tools, so on and so forth. I think the UX and the UI, not only UX and UI are gradually also learning how to collaborate on the discovery process with the developers. And I'm seeing more and more organizations not yet having full-time dedicated UX people in the team, but creating some model that is aimed at very, very close collaboration and having all of the discovery process done, again, in real time, like Jürgen said, with the development. So there's no big upfront planning or anything similar to that.
Yeah, and what I noticed a lot of time is basically this dual track agile model promoted by Martin Keegan and I think some others. And what I noticed, like, you know, you have one team with the skills, but then they create like two separate type of backlogs, which is really, really bad in my perspective, because you don't have this kind of shared team anymore. And I try to, as Jürgen said, I try to understand when we are very early in testing a new product, then or a new idea, then, you know, let's build it in that way that we don't create like too much effort and develop on this too much time. And what skills do we need? And usually is some skills from user experience person. And the more we are like the better we are confident with that's the right solution based on the feedback that we got from customers, the more we implement basically the full feature.
Mm. Oh, Wolfgang, you wanted to jump on that one too.
Yeah. So what I wanted to add here is very often I see misconception that we mean also that about persons, but in this matter we don't talk about persons, so we don't need to have a UX person in the team. Well, what we mean is that you have to have the UX skill or competence in the team, and this can be done well by anybody who can do that, basically. So the same is with testing or anything other. Then the people always say, yeah, but there is this one person and this one person could not do this one. No, that's really a clear misconception. So we talk about the multi-scheme team member in LeSS, so that you have several skills, and this is actually one of the meta skills of every human, that we love to learn new things. So we are capable to learn new things. Yeah? Most of you can read and write. Most of you can drive a car and stuff like this. So you learned all this kind of things. So why to stop there? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I also would add that, like in Keegan book, that was nothing written about that you have to separate the two teams or something like this. There was clearly the message that you have to integrate development and business all together. And actually, if you have this discovery cycle, I see the big benefit, and probably the first event where you integrate the cycles is actually the product backlog refinement. So you invite different people and you refine the user story, and you have the integration of development and UX there, and you can plan some work on both sides in regards to some of the feature. But actually, as early you do the integration of work inside the UX work inside the team, it's the better. Like in Panda, they actually assign the UX designer to the team as soon as they start making the feature, and they can make the correction all the way on the feature delivery. There is no specific upfront development of all of the designs. So you should experiment, I would suggest, with the process. Yes, Jürgen.
Maybe as a closing for this one, there's this kind of nice YouTube video about Nordstrom Innovation Lab with the sunglasses. So if you Google on YouTube or on YouTube search for a Nordstrom Innovation Lab sunglasses, then you will definitely find a nice video where they show how UX collaborates with developers, with testing, and all the other roles or skills. Let's put it like that.
Do you guys see UX joining the path of DevOps, and we're gonna have UX DevOps or like lean UX? I've heard about lean machine learning recently. Okay. What do you guys think about this whole discussion about the frameworks and it is a question from your audience. Is it a useful discussion to compare frameworks and basically have this kind of, differentiation and stuff? Or are we finally at some point arrive a world where there'll be just one approach? Is it actually helpful to have this discussion about the frameworks at all? Anyone?
I believe we don't have guys from another side like who will support another frameworks. That's going to be the discussion like in one way.
I'm not asking about the frameworks now. I'm asking if the discussion about the framework is useful. Like you guys teach classes, right? And there'll be people asking you about Safe and Nexus and whatnot. Like how do you address those discussions? Like I've been to Craig's Lamont class, and every time he asks about something else, he says, I don't know. I know less, and I have no idea what the thing you're currently asking about. And then there will be no more questions about that. How do you guys address those kind of questions? Do you dive into comparing? Is it useful, not useful?
I definitely compare.
Was that?
Yeah, I definitely compare.
All right.
I think there's the comparison helps explain some key elements and ideas, which are actually even easier to explain when comparing. For me, at least using comparison as a tool. So I definitely compare. I think the discussion is useful. I think it's almost always some learning opportunity or some new discovery. So right. I'm all in for comparing. Yeah.
It seems like Jürgen has another point of view.
Yeah, I don't compare because I only have experience with less alike approaches. When I started scaling at 2003, it was less alike, so I have no experience. If they ask me the question in a public setting, then I do not go into the comparison. Then I just mentioned, I've never been in a successful Spotify, DID, Safe, or any other thing. So I have no grounds to compare. I'm not entitled to compare. I do like that organizations, if they intend to go to have agility more away from the team level, but maybe more on a departmental or organizational level, they want to put the attribute of agility on that one, that they do the comparisons for themselves to create alignment. Now, if you were listening to tomorrow's case studies, both of them started as well with the LeSS course and with the Safe course, and then moved on.
I I don't want to say it, but I have experience with Safe. I've been a part of Safe transformation, and I actually even run one Safe transformation by myself, and it was pretty successful. The key question is what do we mean under successful? So this is probably the difference. So the successful for us was we can control somehow the chaos that going on in organization, and we've been fantastic with it. So there was really a lot of control and a lot of roles, and everything's been synchronized. Nothing almost has been delivered at the end because it was a pure waterfall inside. So with LeSS, it's just another optimization goal, right? We are not trying to get the chaos in control. We are trying to do the organization where it's not a chaotic by itself. So I believe this is the main difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Overall.
I'm here 100% with Evgeny. I mean, that's something that I use also as my classes to make sure, I start the discussion about optimization goal, and I make clear what the optimization goal is for LeSS. And for example, I also was involved a couple of years ago in the first SAP S/4HANA upgrade. I mean, that was an upgrade of a software that is already in place, and it takes 1 year to just upgrade this software, and there is a manager who is responsible that this upgrade goes smooth over different departments, different teams that work in different modules and so on. I mean, this person has absolutely no reason to has no system optimization goal of adaptability or providing more customer value. It's about making sure that really after a year that the update is seen as successful, and I think that's a good example to make sure that you have different frameworks that are optimized for different things, and you have to choose what you're trying to optimize for.
Maybe a quick note from my side. So I have been in an so-called Safe adoption before Safe was born. So that was in Nokia Networks when Dean Levy came and introduced the Agile release train, and we did all the great things there. And I have been also coaching a few LeSS adoptions at Nokia at that time. So in my courses now, the people have all these questions and they want to compare things. And typically I collect them in the beginning, and by the end of the course, I look at the questions and they're all already vanished. So they are done. So they are answered. So obviously in the course itself, without bashing or so going into big comparison of other frameworks, I'm at least capable to explain what LeSS is and why it is the way it is. And then this answers the people's question. And then sometimes I make references, like, for example, to release planning of any kind. And if you have release planning sessions of any kind, how dysfunctional they are, basically, and this kind of stuff.
Wolfgang, we're getting complaints about the quality of your channel. It keeps breaking. Can you try to fix something on your end? We don't want to turn off your video because otherwise we won't be able to see you, right? And see your signals on the panel. But if you can choose, like, do something with that would help. Meanwhile, we're coming back to the UX and development topic over and over again. Like, people still asking, like, but how would you actually synchronize these two streams of work if UXing something takes several sprints and maybe longer in some domains than to develop things? So how you actually go about that? Maybe it's the time you give a more detailed answer to UX and development topic, because I think it's a really important and hard one too. Anyone wants to start, and then
I can try, but I think I'm taking too much bandwidth. Anyway, well, I'll take it anyway. So I think DevOps, again, I have my opinions. They are not truth, okay? They are my opinion. I think DevOps as a movement has completely failed. It has missed the point of having operations, the classic operation activities like setting up a new machine or stuff like that, being actually done by the developers themselves. think this is the intention. This is my interpretation of the DevOps movement. It was the next step in integrating more skills and knowledge into this single team that will be able to iteratively, with zero sequence, generate value. I think UX is the same. Again, just to repeat what I said earlier, I think we are learning how to do it. So the DevOps movement is definitely ahead of its time because of the willingness, the ability, and the capability of teams to actually acquire this knowledge internally without having a DevOps person or a dedicated, which is even worse. So right now, the DevOps as a separate team is a classic solution. I think it's a quick fix. It's a workaround for something that we as an industry haven't figured out yet. UX is the same. That's it.
Yep. Probably I could say a few words from my side because I was not able to do it last time. So I think when we talk about merging UX and development closer to each other, I guess if we don't talk about interfaces being created with Bootstrap, like having a seamless process is not possible. But like in my experience, it was always about like cutting down the lead time, like from the moment the idea comes up until the moment idea is delivered. And I think the only way to do it really is to, as we started to do with quality assurance a long time ago, like shifting quality assurance to the left, like to do the same with the development if we consider like UX as a prerequisite for development. So having developers, especially front-end developers, collaborate with the UX people as early as possible to ensure like that we avoid rework coming from designs like that are not implementable, let me use that word. Also like cutting down the rework by having some developers from the teams taking part in the customer interviews, and I also had such experience. So I think the main response to that is somewhere in that field, in just making UX people and people from development and also testing collaborate as early as possible, and to ensure that the amount of handover is minimal.
To elaborate on this a bit, like having developers doing customer interviews, okay, guided and mentored by a UX specialist most probably. It's good because you go to where the value is being consumed, and it's good to understand where the value is being consumed to build the next thing. So this is an extra benefit. If we go into techniques, what you see is the difference between low fidelity prototyping and high fidelity prototyping. And I see many of the UX people also going into pretty high fidelity prototyping, which can be done by developers themselves already and close to code. So you shorten lead time in that sense as well. So you need to teach people, because UX people want to have sexy stuff. You need to teach them to maybe go back to paper prototyping. And there's this nice iPad app, for example, which is called Marvel, where you can take a picture, hotspots, and you can make your drawings actually clickable again. You can easily swap them in the app as well, and you can teach people to collaborate on that sense and have faster feedback while people already implement the UI in the code itself. So on your sprint board, what do you see happening? You see the collaboration between low fidelity and high fidelity being built up at the same time, being added on the sprint backlog to make sure that we understand how things are progressing. So this is practical tips. There are more practical tips in my outcome-based backlog talk, but this is a 1 hour talk on its own, so that's not fit for this one.
I've already referred to your talk in my talk today because you referred in your talk to my talk. So I guess that's how it will work from now on. What are those cards? Before we go into the support and operation, a question that was asked on the channel. I have my question. It's not really less related. It's less community related. Today, before we did this, before we started this streaming, I shared a link with a banner on LinkedIn, and there was like all your faces there, and several more speakers who were also invited but didn't show up. And there was a lady commenting on the post saying, well, why there are only men? And I know this is the time now where, all these topics need to be addressed, although they might not be comparable. I said, well, I didn't pick for the gender, I picked for the experience in the topic of the panel, but some people were not really happy with my answer. How would you answer that? And why are there not so many LeSS trainers being female? And how do we attract it? And do we need to do something artificially, or we just, I don't know, what's your take on that?
Alexei, are you expecting us to make a case for you not having women on the panel? I'm joking.
I'm just a
yeah,
little bit
I'm joking.
puzzled with, I know, with people expecting now diversity everywhere. Well, we also kind of white skin, right? And most of us are based in Europe. So, like, are we biased or what there is? I know.
I think Bas answered this question in the conference almost a year ago about how come there are no women in the LeSS trainer group.
Right.
Then the answer is because we still haven't had a woman pass all of the things that are required in order to become a LeSS trainer.
Right.
One of them is definitely not gender. The gender is not something that we use as a limitation. So why haven't enough women? Actually, there are women in the pipeline, and we expect to have women trainers pretty soon, I hope. But why women are not part of the majority of management positions in IT? In general, let's see how many women are in this conference right now. I'm assuming it's a very small minority. I think that represents the ratio in the industry. It has nothing to do with LeSS.
Right. I guess we're good with that one. Yeah. So Christoph would like us to, no, it's Sebastian who wants us to come back to the question of integration testing, and then we go to the support. He's asking if using mocking for regression testing to compensate for the long waiting times for getting data from legacy, is it an approach? Evgeny.
As an engineer, I would say when you test mock, you test that your mocks are right and built in the proper way. So it's never testing with the real data, and this is not the integration testing; it's mock integration testing. I don't think it's really the option. So
it's good as a quick fix.
I saw a lot of quick fixes that became a permanent solutions. As soon as you start in quick fixing something, the next day everything in quick fix, and everyone think that the quick fixes is the best approach for doing stuff. And then you have everything mocked around in every corner, and everyone is happy that everything is mocked. And as soon as a mock removed, the problem is starting. So this is my opinion, maybe not the best one.
Jürgen?
I would recommend people to go and look at the testing pyramid that Martin Fowler comes up with. So you need to push your automated tests as low as you can in the pyramid. So meaning unit tests with lots of mocks, by the way. So, and if you look at an integration test, you want to test one integration at a time and use mocks for all the rest. So in that sense, and whatever is being tested on low, you don't need on a higher level. So in this way, you can start eliminating some of the very slow, long-running integration tests, because all scenarios are tested with lower level testing already. And you need to avoid this kind of duplication, because otherwise your testing suite will become a hell to maintain.
I wanted to clarify the mock stuff I've told. As I understood the question, it's the question of mocking of integration layer. So we mock the API, and you test the mock of the API with your integration. That's not the best approach. That's what I told. When you're making the unit testing, of course, you will not avoid mocking, because that's the essence, right? But when you're making the integration, that's where I see thousands of mocks people writing down, let mock our API, you can start working on it, and in 2 months we will deliver to you the API that will exactly work like this. Guys, this is the bullshit. That will not exactly work like this. I never saw it works like this exactly. So
That's the basics of the contract-based testing, automated testing. So it's consumers and providers. But anyhow.
Yeah.
There is a danger in this whole thing, so that well, I hope my internet is now better working. There is a danger that if you forget to take the mocks out at some point of time and you believe that actually your product is already finished, and then you bring it to the market and it doesn't function as you actually want, you might get a big surprise. So it already happened a few times in Nokia, and well, it took then several months to fix it all.
My 2 cents on this is, what is the alternative? So there's a lot of context, I'm guessing, around this question, a specific system with a specific reality. And the question is, mocking a good idea or a bad idea? It probably depends on what are the current available alternatives. And my answer would be, if you have such alternatives, then just experiment with each of them with whatever optimization goal you wish to achieve. And if you don't have alternatives, then it would be time for some research to find alternatives.
Well, the context provided is that the API being integrated with rarely changes. So the question is, does it make sense just to mock it out? Like, being an engineer myself and writing a test on daily basis, I would say I would have a test that with mock functionality, so that I know that my code actually knows how to use that API. And then I would also have some integration tests, if I can implement them physically, they would actually trigger that API too. So it's not either or. That what Jürgen explains is the amount, and you want to have the integration tests as little as possible, because they are expensive and they are slow. So I would do that and that and that, and then maybe you don't have to run your integration test with every build, but maybe once in a while if the other stuff doesn't change a lot. Shall we go to the next one? Lighter question. What's the funniest thing you experienced during the overall retrospective? It doesn't have to be funny, this retrospective, right? They don't have to be. I have this idea, like, people think retrospectives needs to be easy, funny, simple. They should not, because it's probably the most important meeting in the agile company, right? This way you are trying to change your and define your destiny. So maybe they shouldn't be funny and all that, but still, if you guys have, if something comes to your mind, what some funny situation, like, kind of somebody jumped naked into a swimming pool and it changed the company drastically, became more agile or more adaptive, maybe that's a story to tell now. But if not, probably it's not relevant. Any funny stories? Any funny stories of
story? But
yeah.
I will take the opportunity to comment on what you said. You said the retrospective is maybe the most important meeting. I think it's not. I think much important is the learning culture. I don't care if they have a retrospective or not. As long as they are continuously improving, a retrospective is a tool. Now, yes, often that's the way to do it. But there are other ways to do it. So go explore and discover. Unfortunately, too many teams are having this retrospective, the same retrospective all over again and again and again, and nothing changes. So then
that's the funny part, lads. You go to the overall retrospective and you have only the team members sitting there and they want to discuss HR practices. They have zero mandate. There are zero HR people in now. That's a funny overall retrospective. I've seen this many times. Let's do a certain thing on a topic and there's zero things that they are able or have a mandate to change. That's something to laugh your ass off.
Yes, it is.
Dennis, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, like, I also don't have any examples of such a funny case like you gave in the beginning. But I think what happened in my life is that since, like, the overall retro is the part where some management is also able to participate, was that once, like, people from the teams I've been working with were really preparing hard to raise some very harsh topic to discuss with the management, and they were really like struggling with finding the way to say it in a nice way to not get anyone offended. And then at the overall retro, everything just went smoothly, and like person did not try to show any resistance, just said, okay, like we will fix it tomorrow. And people were they were like, you could see in their eyes that they were already up for the battle, and the battle did not happen. And like that was really funny for me because I knew the whole context, but nothing like people running around without clothes.
All right, people agree on the chat. They say retrospectives for majority of teams is just a fig leaf. All right, let's go to this hard question about support and operation. Like, any thoughts on how to best balance the needs of pulling operational knowledge into the development teams while balancing sustainable pace while doing 24/7 support? And this needs continuous blocks of uninterrupted time for product development and team size. Like, how do you balance support, operation, and development?
Well, I mean, that's for me, that's exactly what Elad mentioned before. I'm 100% with him that this DevOps movement is about how to do operation in a way that is stable. And you do a change to operations by code. And you never do any kind of, manipulation or change of the configuration of the productive environment by going in there and doing something. Everything happens by code, and it's this kind of knowledge that needs to be transferred into development that usually were back then thought, okay, I'm just doing my code and I give it somewhere else, and they take care about doing it in production and so on. So for me, that's something that it's about learning how to adapt and how to get this knowledge. And we want teams that supports the application in the environment, and not only care about doing good features or something like that, but that the whole product is stable.
Yeah, and also for live monitoring. So the current team that I work with that went into lockdown did the transformation in January. Live production monitoring is part of the job. For them, they chose to have an early morning session with representatives of the teams that bring it back to the teams. Initially before lunch, now they do it after lunch, because before lunch might meant that they didn't have lunch. So now they went after lunch and in the evening. To have representatives going back together and bring it to the teams. It always has a higher priority than starting something new. We need to start finishing, stop starting. So in that sense, this is a golden rule. Another organization, which is tomorrow on the call as well, but in the case study there, they have this kind of operational team role within the sprint. So there's one team taking care about monitoring, issue tracking, solving stuff. And then they move, the next sprint, they move as a general development team, somebody else jumps in. Everything they started, they take with them. So it's not that there's a handover and we throw it over the wall, no, they take it with them and then another team takes the responsibility. But also there, like, what kind of pattern would you use to tackle in your organization depends highly on the quality and the complexity of your system or your product as such.
I'm also the fan of this team on duty. Let's say like this, when one of the team for one sprint is like helping support with the support tickets and serve the support of the customers. I believe that's actually make the great education for the people in general in organization, make them much closer to the actual customer. If they, for example, can receive a support ticket, make a call to the customer, speak with the customer, see how it actually works or doesn't work for him. I believe this is the great opportunity to learn and raise the learning of organization on another level. So that's actually in my case, it's actually working like this. So one team on duty on support, helping support team, one first level support, operate with the customers and get the pain from them. More questions? We have 6 minutes, right?
Seems no.
Time for last question.
Since people are either happy or just tired, maybe both at the same time, right? It's been a long day too. Anyways, if there are people saying thank you. Anyway, tomorrow we're gonna have Jurgen Smet from 3 p.m. Central European time. Would you
Let me
mind
share.
giving a quick pitch, Jurgen, what your talk is about?
Quick pitch.
Yeah.
A quick pitch. Don't.
That was very quick pitch. A bit longer.
A bit longer. Well, tomorrow I bring at least 2 persons with me that live in the organization that we did a last Kaikaku event. So Kaikaku meaning a system change, not this slow incremental Kaizen, which everybody knows. So Kaizen you can do until within the current system as far as you can go, and then you need a system change and continue Kaizen to grow beyond. I would call it like that. So tomorrow I give you the insights on how to prepare, having the event, and then the people from the organization are going to take it over from me to guide you through what happened afterwards and how did it grow and what were the struggles, but also success factors.
How many are you presenting tomorrow? How many are you?
We are with Ika, myself, and then I have Georgie as one of the organizational persons, then Tom, who's living in an organization, and one of our other co-learning coaches, Olivier. So we're with 4 of us.
Cool. Okay, so the first talk tomorrow will be with 4 people, 1 coach and other people who've been with Jurgen along his journey. Then we're going to have Karel Smutny from Czech Republic also with his colleagues and clients, speaking about the case they currently have in Czech insurance. And then we're going to have Wolfgang Steffens. Wolfgang, would you mind giving small intro?
Yeah, basically I will tell the story what happened in a large insurance company in Germany and how they actually made the transition from manager is deciding organization. We will also a little bit talk about the safe designing team workshop, what happens there and what were the consequences of this. And overall, yeah, introducing less huge in an organization.
All right, thanks. And we need to work with you on your networking issue. So tomorrow during talk, it's still breaking a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe your camera is a super high quality like HD or something. Maybe it just eats the bandwidth. That's also possible. And then we're gonna have Gene Gendel from New York join us as a closing talk about his story of LS adoption in a large investment bank. Like, as you can see, guys, in most cases, people are not able to name the companies and the clients, but we don't think that really matters because, I mean, what you should be looking for is the experience and the lessons learned. With that, I would like to thank everyone who's been with us today. We had 35 people watching our panel discussion on Zoom. And Evgeny, how many people in YouTube?
It's about 16 as far as I see.
We have like a good 50 people who are interested in this topic. So that's actually amazing, right? We would do it just for one person who is really interested. We're not into numbers and scaling, as you already know by now. We just trying to spread the thinking techniques. So thank you guys once again for being with us tonight. Have a good.
Thank you.
How it's called in English? Feierabend. It's a German phrase. It doesn't exist in any other language, right? Germans celebrate the evening after work. Like, what's the English word for that? Evening, just evening, but it's not evening. It's the special evening. Is the evening when you don't have to work. So everybody enjoy the evening when you don't have to work, hopefully. And we see you all, and we hear you all tomorrow at the same time.